Yogis, I'm Jay, BreatheMoveShine. Haven't seen you in a little while. I've really been thinking about this really casual anchoring yin yoga practice today, and I just walked in the door. So here I am to hang out with you for a little bit of time. It's not a bad idea to take your boots off and to, if you have one of these nice big bolsters, or if you've got some of those beautiful Mexico blankets that you can roll up into a big roll, really nice idea, something to provide some kind of comfort and props and soft landings for some of the postures. So interesting today, it's felt, I said, did anybody else get the alert that each hour is actually 2 hours, and people are going, what? And it's just like one of those Groundhog Days where the sun is not out and you just don't know what time it is. So I feel a need to get really anchored and kind of grounded. So we're going to start in Dangleasana. And basically you're going to place your feet pretty much wider than hip distance and have something maybe just a little bit tall or a couple of blocks to land your elbows on. And then just allow for your body to slump off of the top of your hips. Dangleasana is sometimes what this posture is called. So literally just dangling yourself heavily off the top of the hips. Right, so it's as if the legs are just mighty strong structures that create a safe and anchored place for your body to just slump forward. So we're not going to stay here too long. But what I like to do is stay long enough so that you can notice some elongation starting to happen in the spine. And even an upside down sort of quality of the contents of my body. And sometimes I'll even add to it, so hauling out the low belly a little bit. So I can notice the diaphragm dropping upside down. Nice. So let's say 5 breaths here. In the yin postures, generally what happens is we place all the parts and then really descend into stillness, surrender into stillness. So I'm going to go for 2 more breaths. There's a big in the nose and out the nose. Alright, and then real simply start to come up a bit on whatever's under your hands. Turn the feet out a little bit and just descend into frog pose. So not unlike frog pose in our more dynamic postures, but really allowing for the connective tissues of the hips and the knees and the ankles to loosen and allow your body to slump through the support of your legs. Super grounding and anchoring as I literally can feel my body, the weight of my body just dropping and drifting down earthward. So this is the opening posture for our time together here. Just for 5 more breaths. What's nice is to, no matter what kind of practice that you're entering into as you come to the mat or your space, is to just land yourself before you decide, what the next part is. Settling. Okay. So, welcome. Thanks for coming. So primarily I'm going to be this direction, and so what I'd like to do is start seated on the front end of this bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you could arrange some blocks under your sits bones. It's lovely if you can have the knees bent so that the feet are behind you, but there are options. But just for now, I thought that I wanted to start really close to the end here and then allow for very slowly. This comes in pieces, okay? Very slowly to allow for the arms close to the hips in space and to the bolster or the blanket. So I'm kind of setting up stilts behind me so that I can allow for the entirety of the front of the legs and maybe into the low abs to start to lengthen. And then just really slowly over time, I'm going to end up moving almost off the bolster on the front end and then come to the elbows. And there's a lot of sensation in most of the postures that we visit, especially in the in practice, because what we're trying to do is address connective tissue and fascia that's a little bit on the dense holding sort of feel inside of your body. And then ultimately I can place my head back, however, not a bad idea to have a block back here. Grab your jacket that you just took off, maybe bunch it behind your head any way that you wish to support your head. I, however, feel really nice about the idea of my head coming all the way down so I can expand at the throat. And then again, as always, best as you can, just allow for the shape to do the work rather than you do the work in the shape. You're not really trying to find the shape, you're allowing for the shape to find you. For me, there is definitely some congestion in the low back, so what I can do is tip the tailbone slightly forward, lengthen the fronts of the thighs, and then rest the hips back down. And then any combination of propping under the spine, under the hips, even maybe under the knees, whatever it is that you require to be able to stay here. We're going to go for 3 more minutes. So the only thing that we're involved in any way is to keep the breath moving in and out of the nose. It's quite lovely. Here I can feel the radiance of the fire behind me. And because I'm me, I'm going to allow for that fire energy to kind of drift down to the top of my skull and then all the way through my body. And maybe invite that warmth to get to the parts of me that feel a little bit resistant of this asana, this posture. As is true with many yin postures, if at any point during the stillness that you need to make the slightest bit of an adjustment in or out of the shape, please do. Having said that, I'd like to though encourage that you lean into the sensation. For me, it's at the front of the thighs, it's down at the low sacrum. Sensation shows up as a means of communicating an alert to the body. What's going on here? You're putting me into the shape and I'm not too sure about it. But almost always, over some time, that stuff starts to really diminish. and the softening starts to happen. Trust me. One more minute. You might as well put a little smile on your face while you're here. And so for the duration of the last minute, this is totally optional, but it's a nice embellishment. You might like to reach the arms overhead, maybe collect elbows, maybe lace up the fingers, and let the arms drop heavy, let the shoulder blades be sliding down behind you, not to bunch the top of the shoulders, and just let the arms be heavy. My bolster actually has a loop at the end, and I like to strap my hands behind that little belted strap so I don't have to hold my arms at all. It's really nice. Let's go for 10 more breaths, nice and deeply in the nose. Follow that breath all the way to the toes, and then watch that exhalation from the toes all the way out your nose for 9 more breaths. And just sending a little bit of an alert, a little bit of awareness to the still resistant parts of the shape. And invite just the tiniest bit of more softness. For 3 more breaths, really big. I wonder if you can notice my belly is the thing that poofs out, not so much the ribs. And then exhale, press the diaphragm back up against the bottom of the lungs. And then almost like a vacuum, the inhalation sends the diaphragm down again. The belly poofs out. And then exhale, it's like that vacuum kind of feeling of the diaphragm sucking back up to press all the breath out of the lungs. One more time, fill. And then you could return the arms down, quite possibly place the hands pretty close to the feet on the floor. And very slowly, my trick is honestly to just take the back of my head and lift my head first. You know, that's like a big thing, right? And then nice and slowly, not gonna lie, there is a lot of sensation coming up out of this. So as is typical in all of the yin postures, you really want to make sure that the transitions are very tender and very slow. So I'm gonna seat myself back up on the end of the bolster, just a nice tall spine for a moment. And my head sort of feels like it wants to drop side to side, do a little spin. All right, let's go back to that idea of returning down to anchoring down with the exhalation, feeling the weight of your body drift downward. Feel that stability, and then on the in-breath, this really sweet kind of ascendancy simultaneously to the weighted droppingness. Right, so an inhalation lifts us up a bit. Nice, and then an exhalation one more time really drifts down into the gravity. Okay, that was a lot for this first thing, right out of the gate. So I'd like it to spin around a little bit, and take your blanket roll, your bolster, place it in front of you. And we're gonna set up for the ever delicious Sphinx pose with a support under the hips. If you don't have a blanket or pillows or a bolster, you could actually use 2 blocks lined up if you like to. But it'd be really nice if you could start down on the elbows. My pelvis and hips are completely placed safely on top of this prop. The elbows are a little bit wider than shoulders in this case, and then even a little bit forward because I don't have a block. You could have a block. Ultimately, once we set up the arm bones, the spine, the hips, and the legs, we curl those toes under, press the heels away, and lengthen in the front of the hip flexors a little. And then really just let your spine drop down between the tops of your arms. So rather than a really active shape, you're going to go ahead and let the spine collapse, and then quite possibly make a nice little landing place for your forehead with your arms, your hands. This may or may not be an MJ exclusive, but an option here for a minute is to put your thumbs right at the brow point and support the weight of your cranium on your thumbs, right at that ridge, right at the underside of the ridge. I'm hopeful that you can see that. It feels pretty amazing. And then again, as always, really returning to the idea, you're almost completely on the floor flat, all of the bones of the body dropping really heavily down. All of a sudden, as soon as I said down, my shoulder blades slid down behind me, so you might want to check in with, if the blades are way up here somewhere, go ahead and just drift them back down. And then we turn to the movement of the breath. Really nice to have the pelvis landed at the low belly on this prop so that I can notice the in-breath pressing below the navel center down into that bolster. And there's this really nice expansive quality that shows up at the low back and sacrum when that happens, right? So as you breathe really deeply into the low belly, you'll feel a kind of lift and widening back here. Really tasty. Be on the lookout for that. Typically we stay in the shapes for anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 minutes. And so that's why it's crucial to make sure that you're arranging yourself in a way that's sustainable. It's also pretty important to notice as the sensations arise and address them accordingly. And then return to the business of relinquishing resistance. How about that for a sentence today? Relinquish resistance. Yeah. One more minute here, my friends. Let's drop back into breath. Generally not really addressed much in a yin practice, although I think it's one of the main ingredients of all of our practices. 3 more breaths. My friends, deeply in and deeply out. A nice idea for that last breath to let your thumbs find a pattern at the edge of the eyebrows and then down around the cheekbones and maybe down into the jaw. And then why not just enjoy the thumbs pressing into that jaw joint a little bit. Okay. There's a stage 2 to this posture, which has us come up a little bit taller. It's called seal pose. Seal pose is kind of cool because of depending on where you place your hands and how long your arms are and the bend in your elbows, right? You could set it up like this so that you're really only coming up a couple of inches, tucking the elbows into the bolster or blanket. Or, if you're feeling like, I feel really kind of reachy on the front side of the body, and take the bend out of the elbows, maybe just even a midi little lock in the elbows. You don't really have to hold too many muscles there. So set that up. For me, the experience of this is really lovely, from really here all the way down, opening up and lengthening from perhaps being seated all day or curled over for some reason. Really want to lengthen the front side of our bodies as much as we can. Once here, I have a stilt of arms set up so that maybe, quite possibly, might like to slump through and let my head drop forward. Completely optional for you guys. So this is sort of interesting because the hip flexors, low abs, and the front of the thighs are lengthening. At the same time, with the head drop, I'm lengthening the back of the neck, which sometimes when we're busy during the day, gets kind of pinched back there, right? So this is a really tasty option for you to check out. I'm going to give this about 2 more minutes. The really cool news is that you're free to create this for yourself and stay in the postures as long as you wish to. There is such thing as too long, so I would say not to exceed 5 minutes, 6 maybe max. We wouldn't want to stay for a very, very long time is all. Just another minute. Five more breaths. Deeply in. Returning to that idea of inflating big and wide of ground. Below the navel center, pressing against the bolster. Exhale, exhale. Diaphragm presses up, expels all the breath. 4 more of those. Meanwhile, you're checking around to make sure that pieces that feel a little bit discouraged or a little nervous with the shape, just soften a little bit around as we can. We use the remains of 3 breaths to lift the head back up. Park a smile on my face. And then nice and slow, check this out. Hands are going to transition to bolster or blanket or the blocks. And press yourself right into slightly elevated on the front end table pose, in which your head will completely drop. And those of you who are my yogi friends know I'm a big fan of the head shake. So let's just do a little bit of a head shake here. So our little intermission between asana, between shakes, is to get the toes close together, the knees kind of far apart, and move the bolster far enough ahead so that the forearms are on top of this situation. If you don't have a bolster or blanket, you can be on the floor too. It's not a problem. But it's nice to have the lift here, and here's why. Because I'm going to let the head come down and drop through. So now suddenly, length is being created from the low spine all the way up, and even like all the way through the front side of your arms, through the armpits, immune system. Just letting the head be super heavy and drop to the floor. So this is just a transitional place. It feels pretty nice. We'll stay for a minute. And I wonder if it would be possible for you to have notice of how, as the breath comes in the nose, fills up the back body, in some way expanding a little bit back here on the next in-breath. And then exhale. Just 3 more breaths of that. In-breath. And out. Hopefully you're noticing my back body expand on this in-breath. And then as I exhale, I'm going to move one hand, move another hand, keep my head super heavy. Start to press the floor away under the arms and restack the spine from the bottom to the top. And just sit for a moment, if you wouldn't mind, Vajrasana with the legs tucked under, maybe a block under your bottom here, be okay? I have my hands open in order to receive a little extra energy here at the end of the day. The postures can provoke a kind of lovely sleepy quality. That's fine. I'm going to try not to fall asleep. I'm going to try to stay awake through the whole thing. So a really bright kind of awareness with just a complete relaxed sort of approach is the key. Okay, I'm feeling side body here, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to use this bolster again, and so this is a fun way to do the legs. You could start first with the bolster situated either side, doesn't really matter. First start with the knees step, and that could be it, and you could come down like this, because we're looking to support the thoracic body here, and then ultimately reach the top arm over. Another option for the legs is called deer pose. So I'm going to take the top leg, move it back until the knee and the foot intersect. So I make this really cool looking hieroglyphics shape with my legs, right? Then, ensuring that I have the support under the thoracic body, reaching the spine nice and long, park the elbow and support my head. Okay, right off the bat, a little psoas, yeah? For runners or whoever's in the space that feel like they'd like to really open deep into the psoas. This is so awesome. And then optional is to reach the arm overhead and just let it fall. I can take a really gentle sort of touch to the top of the back arm there, but really just let your arm be heavy. So if there's a goal, and I use that term carefully, it's to have a sense that there's a reaching, kind of long reaching quality that orients almost from your knee all the way up through the side body, the front of the top hip, and then through the armpit and even the back of the top arm. Theoretically, the hips remain stacked, so you're going to have to futz around a little bit to arrange the legs and the hips in a way that will hold that in that place. Just just another day at the beach. Alright, so for future reference, when you come with a few more props to your mat, or if you have them, another arm option here is to eliminate this arm entirely and let your head fall entirely. And then I've got my hand behind my head here. So I'm gonna try to stay like this for a little bit of time. Because wow, this feels amazing right through there. For 2 minutes. Big belly breathing. And I don't see why you wouldn't be in favor of letting some exhalations out of your mouth. So I'm not going to tell why this is a little bit of a lot from your neck. Come back up here. Perfect. In practice, it's interesting to know that it's nice to allow for the phenomena of mind, the phenomena of thought, in and out, I think. Because there could be some interesting information available there. Occasionally, it's known to happen as we posture ourselves in such provocative and awkward ways, right? That suddenly something will come through the middle that surprises you. That's all I'm going to say about that. So we hold space for the arrival of intrigue and curiosity. Always. And because it's me, I will just say, hey, how's it going? It's you again. Whatever it is, whatever it is. And be with it. And let it go. Feels like 1 more minute, right? I hope y'all are feeling the love. So I'm going to use the remains of this half minute to kind of deconstruct. So the first thing is that the arm will come up and I'll get the feeling back in my fingertips. Alright, just let that arm go heavy for a moment. And then how convenient that there's the hand is right there and I can, whatever it takes, again, really let your head be so heavy to situate yourself in a way that you can place both the hip bones back down to the floor. I generally like to stilt my arms behind me, creating a little more support for the spine, and just sit for a moment. So excited for side B, the other side. But you'd like to take a moment between the asana, between the postures, just to kind of collect it, assimilate. See here, use those straps, really nice for hands. Okay. So we're just going to switch sides. Yeah. All right. Start with the knees stacked and nicely bent. Edge of the bolster or the blanket right at your hip. Breathe a nice long in-breath. Lengthen the spine and just kind of curl it over the edge so that the hips are stacked. The shoulders are fairly stacked. I got a little parking spot for my head here. And then I'm going to just take that top knee, is going to come behind and intersect the bottom foot. Right? And then again, optional, but really nice to embellish this, is to reach the top arm over and just let it go. So it's almost impossible not to notice that one side is a completely different condition than the other. I really just want to breathe as deeply as I can. And what the heck, I'm just going to see what happens if I take this arm out for a little bit. Like my hand behind the back of my head, a little bit of support there. I just think it feels a little more available to me to stay here on the side. 2 minutes or so. And for those who are interested, my top leg, I could actually press that from behind me more, so there's more space between the foot and the knee. And all of a sudden, wow, this all has just opened up a whole lot. There's a fairly good chance that the top knee is not going to like or be able to get to the floor. P.S. Go ahead and put a block under there or something that's nearby, just to add a little support under that knee. You want, for the most part, all of your appendages to feel supported and safe and able to let go. And that's sort of the primary objective of props in any class, actually. Actively deepen the belly and exhale. Inhale, round belly, deep breath. And exhalation. Lovely to feel the energy of the fire behind me. It's possible for you to notice the heaviness of your head, the heaviness of the arm that's on the floor, the heaviness of the arm that's up, even the heaviness of the shoulder blades behind you. Yeah, but notice that as soon as you hear the word heavy, can you hear the feeling kind of dropping a little bit down? Language is such a fun tool to use in our practice to make. So surrender, relinquish, let go. Non-resistance. 5 more breaths. Big in. Big out. Remains of those breaths. Start to unpack it, maybe a little differently than the last time. Once again, using the hands to press the floor away to keep your head really heavy. I just automatically scoot right into cross-legged. Make little arm stilts behind me. And what's calling to me is just to let my head roll side to side a bit. And then come on back up to center. Beautiful. All right. Let's take the bolster. So this is going to be a kind of a supported child's pose big time. I'm hopeful that you have something like this, or a big blanket roll, or some big old pillows, even in some cases cushions from your couch I've seen people use. We've got a big stack of something, even a bunch of blocks, something in front of you, so that we can create kind of a landing place for the spine. The arms will suspend nice and heavily off of the shoulders. It's a little bit of a two-part posture because I've got my gaze this way, so that I can halfway through give you the cue to switch your head to the other side. You may need some time to build your little construction site, something to support you. I'm just going to show you, in case you don't have this, and you just happen to have a couple of throw pillows nearby, even just this, right, tucked between the legs. It can be really helpful as long as there's something for your head to land on. Okay? Something like this is just fine. Okay. Going back to this. So, for those who are curious, the toes are touching behind me, the knees are really wide. You can feel the bolster or the blanket roll between the legs. The arms are really heavy. I like it to be very aware of how the shoulder blades are behind you. Sometimes what happens is we hike them way up, right? I like you to just slide them back down and deposit the elbows down. And even this is something to investigate. Hands face down or hands up. Which one feels tastier for the arrangement of the shoulders? You know, the elbows, the wrists. Energetically, if you need to receive a little extra energy here, the hands up could be useful. If you're really needing to get grounded, hands down is nice and helpful in this situation. Right. I am personally loving when it's happening back here. Again, it's a supported child's pose. So the hips are dropping really heavily to the ankles. We're not trying to be up here. We're really trying to land the hips as heavily as possible to the ankles. And P.S. yes, if you need to have a block under here, even a pillow, see why not. That's quite lovely. Please return to awareness of the lower belly movement, moving out and wide and round on the in-breath. And then exhale. So let's seep out. Nose or mouth. Nose is ideal. Good wide, round belly breath. Exhale. I think it's pretty cool because I can actually hear my heartbeat inside of the bolster. That's good. breaths, we're very gently going to switch the side that our head landed on. And because it's really nice etiquette, I'm actually going to completely turn around. So that I won't have to look at the back of my head. So now on the opposite side of my head. And all is right with the world. Really cool part to notice the weight, independent weight of each arm. Notice the independent weight of each shoulder blade down behind you. Check this out. Even notice the weight of your jaw released from the hinge off of your head, really heavy. Even notice the maybe the side of your face connection to that holster and the weight of your head. It would be really great if you could imagine that each exhalation, really from the get-go to the end of the practice, you're just a little bit drifted down more earthward. Teeny bit more each exhalation. Much of the past three shapes that we did ultimately address deep into the hips, and that's going to come in handy for our next posture. Okay. So what I'm recommending here is to slide your hands to the tops of your thighs. Start to turn your gaze down and land your chin. And then engage the arms and the hands just enough to return the spine up and the head kind of rest. So here we go. I'm glad that I have these cushions because I'm going to use one to sit on, and I'm deciding to even make it a little bit bigger. Alright, and then, so I have this one handy, and that is because we're going to try to make a fire log shake. Alright, see, okay. So, the bottom leg, nice straight calf, the top leg, nice straight calf. Alright, I know, oh my gosh, but here's the thing, you can use a pillow here. For many, this is completely out of the question, and it all has to do with the architecture of your hips. But best you can, honestly, you could even be up here and get away with this shape. It's ideal if this bony structure is in the outside of the thigh bone here. But again, what we'd like not to have is your ankle stick like this. So the best you can, we are literally stacking a couple logs here. And you're gonna feel the hips pretty much immediately. Okay, and we're not gonna stay here for a very, very long time, but I am going to ask you to, best you can, find a sustainable way to be in shape with quite possibly the most sensation that you're feeling so far with our visit tonight. Okay. I'm gonna come forward a little bit to a forward fold. but that is, entirely optional. And I am going to let my head drop forward. So I get the support of the arms to some extent. And I'm going to time us for 2 minutes. Alright, that's all we got for this side. The thing that's fun about some more provocative shapes is coming out of it. For now, let's be in this moment and this breath together. Let's be in this moment and this breath. Fire log. This yoga. Okay. Half a minute. If you wish to keep the legs just really slowly. Start to sit up a little taller. Maybe you want to make stilts out of your arms for a moment. We're going to finish this out for 5 more breaths together. We're all going to in-breath deeply. And exhale. In-breath deeply. Exhale. Breath. Please 2 more all together. Deep breath here. Feel y'all. 1 more deep in breath. Okay, here's the tricky. In breath all the way in and slowly use your arms on that exhale to unpack that shape, to maybe stack the knees in front of you. And nice little transition between intermission is to widen your feet and make a little bit of a tent shape. And then here's that deer pose that we referenced earlier. Nice way to get the feeling back in your legs. And fresh, new synovial fluids, all that. Our feelings were saying the good news is we only have 1 more leg to do, alright? It's going to be completely different. So set up your little cushion under yourself or block even, the more that you can lift yourself up off the floor actually. Generally speaking, the more available this is going to seem to you. So having said that, I'm going to see how it is. If I try this side a little bit taller. Okay, drop that first log. And then the second. Alright, best you can. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So how handy is this? Alright, that's what I need for this side. Alright, and then I just get started. So this is a 3-minute sitch. 3 or 2. Sit 2. So let's stay with that. So for me, I use the breath to very slowly, if it's available, to inch forward. And again, kind of the idea of making stilts out of your arms. And there's no reason at all why you have to hold your head up. You can let your head drop. So for those of you who are in some cool and damp weather, this is, could be presented as a little bit trickier than if it's a nice warm day. Just saying. My experience proves that a nice warm, not quite hot, but pretty warm hot Epsom salt bath before yin yoga practice is amazing. Or after, for that matter. Almost there. One more minute, my friends. Alright, 5 breaths to really slowly. First, don't move your legs quite yet. Just come on back up tall. See what happens if I pull this guy out. Alright. And then I'm using the arms to take the first leg, second leg. Make that little tent shape of your legs again and stilt your arms behind you. Just sit for a moment. Okay. Well, here comes the fun part, yeah? So, Savasana, I'll get you in, but what I'll have you do is I'll also exit while you're in Shavasana. You can stay as long as you want. But I would say there's no reason why you wouldn't have to want to have a pillow under your head. You wouldn't have to. But this bolster is really nice to park right under the hinge of your knees. And of course, all of these are optional, but if you decide that you would rather have your legs nice and long, this is the typical classical pentacle shape. It's a closed star shape for our resting posture. So while you negotiate which way that you would like to rest yourself, as you do so, I will lead you out with just a little bit of a breath awareness practice to help you to assimilate the benefit of all of the shapes that we just made together. And so the way that we can do that is, now that you're resting and you're still, you will start to send the breath into the nose. And then let the breath come out of the nose. And then I would like you to just, on the next in-breath, have an awareness of the top of your head. And as you exhale, An awareness of, say, the range of the eyes and the ears of your head. Nice long in-breath. And as you exhale, you'll drift awareness down the chins, through the jaw, down to the neck. Let the rest of the breath reside there for a moment around the throat. And then allow for the next inhale, awareness of the tops of the shoulders. And then exhale, awareness drifts down the arms, and whole entire exhalation to the fingertips. Then use the next in-breath to start at the fingertips with the awareness and drift all the way back up the arms to the shoulders. That's an in-breath. Let the breath rest here, top the shoulders. Nice long in-breath, and then exhale into the rib cage, all inside of the rib cage. So now we're in the lung channels and the heart area. We're going to stay there for a little bit with breath. So on your own in-out breath, let the circle of that breath roam around inside of your thoracic body, inside the ribs, inside the lungs, around the heart, a few circles. So you can almost kind of see this breathy kind of world inside, right? And then it drifts down a bit to the low abdomen and the pelvis and makes another little whirl inside there after 2 or 3 breath cycles in that way. Let the breath rest after 2 or 3 of those breath cycles, just right at the crease of the hips where the legs start to form. So the in-breath there, and as you exhale, that breath drifts down, awareness all the way through the tops of the legs to the knees, fronts, backs, and sides of those tops of the legs to the knees. The rest of the breath there, resting at the knees. Next in-breath, just have an awareness of the exhale drifting through the knees, down the calves, shins, to the ankles, all the way to the toes. And then from here on out, simply allow for an conjured breath pattern, just a nice sort of easy breath in and out. And just let those breaths land where they're going to land in your awareness, so that you notice that you drift even now more heavily than when we started into gravity, connecting down bones, soft tissues down into the earth. For your rest, once again, yogis, please stay, please stay. I'd love to thank you here and send so much gratitude for your joining me here this evening on this lovely winter evening. Thank you. It's MJ BreatheMoveShine. Namaste.